Hello, Jason. Thank you very much for taking the time today to have this interview. And I think we can start by establishing a bit of your background. So can you tell us a bit about your background in IT? What led you to specialize in the public sector and how you ended up working with the SMEs and the private sector at the end of it?
Public sector was a complete stumble, really. I was working a very, very dead-end job. I'd been to college and studied to do my apprenticeship for an IT. And then I ended up getting a completely dead-end job printed on sellotape. And a guy there said, mate, you're not worth, you shouldn't be here. Like, I know a guy who might have a job for you. Go to this place at 4 o'clock on this day. And I did. I was only 16, 17, turned up. And within, I think it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in the police headquarters being interviewed for a job. And it was the most confusing thing ever. But yeah, I spent 8 years in the police. I went through service desk manager, was looking at a continuous improvement role before leaving and went into the private sector. But ultimately, my job, whilst I was there, mainly was something called futures. So my job was to look at saving money during the austerity cuts, how technology can help save money. How can we spend a lot now to save a lot in the future, or vice versa. So yeah, I worked for the police for a long time, worked for the NHS for a period of time when I was in the private sector, and I've worked in multiple companies from £50 million turnover down to £5,000 turnover.
So you have had a range of organizations and a range of experience within the IT sector. So the next question is, how did that range influence your perspective on IT, and how does it reflect on different organizations and different sectors?
The public sectors and the private sectors completely work differently. Also, I've noticed as well, even in the private sector, the difference between a company with a board who make decisions and single owner companies who make decisions independently completely work separately. You have sometimes a blurred view on IT. Particularly, you'll tend to find that CEOs who are looking after their own company have their own opinions on IT, and then force that opinion upon people lower down. And I was director of IT for a very large company and could make no changes because the CEO didn't like IT. So it's a very difficult industry to be in.
So it does make a difference who's making the decisions then within the organization itself.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the biggest IT challenges that you've seen in public sectors compared to, let's say, the private sector?
As mean as this sounds, the number one risk to every single company is people. The staff you have in your building, the training that they receive, that is the number one risk to every single company, whether it's public sector, private sector, it doesn't matter. People is the risk. However, the larger the company, the more at risk you are. Being a micro business with your cybersecurity essentials, provided you follow the rules and guidelines of those, you tend to be relatively safe. You start making waves in the marketplace and people start noticing you, and you become more susceptible to being attacked. So people like large organizations like the police and the NHS, as we saw a few years ago, the NHS got hacked, and it's massive. So yeah, it's huge.
Okay, well, that leads us on to the next question, actually, which are the top security considerations. So obviously you have people and how well informed they might be. What other considerations do you think an organization should have and stay on top of to make sure they're safe?
So training, like I say, number one, absolutely massive. Everybody, please, if you have staff, give them fishing training. Not telling you how to go and catch a fish on the sea, but actual how to spot risky emails. Like, phishing training is massive. I'm going to put a number out there. I'm sure I read something like 90% of attacks on companies come through Microsoft accounts or email accounts.
Wow.
That are through phishing. And you only look at your Microsoft security score in your admin portal. Tells you how to improve it. But yeah, phishing training, please get that out to all your staff. But also password sharing, keeping passwords in notebooks, that kind of stuff. It's just a huge no.
And post-it note on your keyboard.
Also, exactly, under your keyboard, like the amount of times I'll go to a desk and I'll move a keyboard and there'll be the password's written down. You're like, why? Also, get with the times a little bit as well. So frequent password changes, no longer the way forward, because people just have the same password over again with a number on the end. Have a long password, 15, 16, 17, 18 characters, and never change it, because it's almost impossible to hack. That's kind of what we want. We want things like that. And use password managers, obviously, for your passwords.
Yeah, and your 2FA place as well.
Yeah, 2FA is absolutely massive right now. And then physical security is massive. People think that digital security and physical security don't go hand in hand, and actually they do. It's so easy to walk into a building that's unlocked without any access control, sit down at a computer that's on a network, and gain access to the entire system.
Yeah. Okay. Well, based on that, obviously we're here to talk about the LoLa system as well, because we've collaborated for a while now. And given your experience, what do you think it sets LoLa apart in terms of security? And then we can move on to other benefits that we can talk about as well.
I mean, straight off the back of what I said, physical security, LoLa, the machine is a virtual machine in the cloud. That local machine that accesses it is actually just a dead machine. It's what we call a thin client. So that machine is actually a thin client. It actually does nothing really other than provide a gateway to the machine in the cloud. All the passwords and everything else are all on the actual cloud and managed by the server on the cloud itself. So physical security becomes less of an issue. Also, in terms of like security updates and that kind of thing, I was talking with my friends yesterday. We were having a bit of a laugh because I went into a customer to install some Wi-Fi, and they had a Windows 7 machine still connected to the internet in one of the offices. I told my friends about it because we all work in IT, and I was like, look, how do I convince this company otherwise? And what's your experience? And they were saying, I've got servers on 2012 R2 and everything else in between. So, we were having a bit of a confab about actually how do we try and minimize the risk to these issues, especially with the Windows 7 machine. They had software on there that only runs on Windows 7 and is maintaining half the factory. How is a business meant to function? So yeah, security updates become less of a risk on cloud-based machines as well. And like I say, passwords and things like that, they're automatically locked whether you want to or not. You can't turn those kind of things off. They become less of a risk.
Of course. So when it comes to businesses and government bodies that are considering remote solutions and cloud PCs for those purposes, how do you think LoLa meets their needs better than, let's say, a traditional PC instead of purchasing PCs?
For me, the number one key factor here is cost. It's not significantly cheaper upfront or in the long run to say cloud-based machines. They're pretty much on par. However, the risk of breakage. So, you might issue a laptop to a customer, 2 months down the line, they break that laptop. Then that has all of a sudden become double the cost rather than just the single cost that you would normally have paid. You've also got the very serious consideration of things like theft of laptop, theft of computer, and most remote workers as well, that are using things like a desktop in the office and a laptop that they carry home with them that they can get out at home and put on the desk and set up for the, with the screens and everything that you pay for to put into their homes, and it all adds up. Where if you could put a thin client with a single monitor in a home for total cost of £70, for example, and then run a cloud-based machine off it that is top spec, it's absolutely key. But for me, the other one as well is, and I'm going from experience here, we had a graphics design department that had 10 top of the range PCs, £10,000 each, which upfront costs a lot of money, also costs a lot of money to maintain. Anything breaks, it costs more to fix. They're more extensive usage on networks. They provide more heating, more power, more everything consumption-wise. So to kind of move that into a cloud and share that functionality as well. You're looking at design departments, they're only rendering videos maybe once a week each, but they need the high spec machine to do that. But actually, most of the time, they only need a relatively mid spec machine to be able to do what they're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Why not put them all on mid spec machines on the cloud and have one high spec machine? Rather than spending £50,000 on a department of 5, you're spending £100 a month.
Wow.
It's a significant difference.
Sounds like a no-brainer, doesn't it? When it comes to a shift towards cloud-based IT, if we've looked at the user's perspective and we looked at security and the governance in a company, what about the IT itself? What about the IT departments? How would going cloud-based help them in the long term?
Well, it's again, it's double functionality in a sense of you would need less staff because management becomes less. So apologies to the IT departments, kind of shooting our own team in the foot here, but you don't need as many people to manage tickets and manage systems because those people will have access to the cloud-based support that is provided by the provider, by LoLa, and those people will be able to manage that system using one terminal, basically. If you've got a major issue on someone's terminal, you run up a new terminal. If someone, does something, uninstalls something or something else, you remotely reinstall that application. It becomes a lot simpler to manage, and therefore the access required is less and the amount of people that are required is less.
There you go. So when it comes to sustainability, so we've spoken about not purchasing as many hardware devices and having things cloud-based. How does that impact sustainability on the electric level or the hardware level?
Well, we're expecting very shortly another shortage in hardware, in CPUs,
Silicon chips, yeah.
Silicon chips, purely because of the dock shortages in America, for one, because of the dock strikes, but also the mines,
mining the
mines
metal.
called the quartz mines.
Is that what they're called?
They're called the quartz mines, yeah. So the quartz mines over in America are currently on strike as well, which is what we use for the superconductors in chips.
Okay.
So there's a massive shortage coming, expected, because we're not producing enough.
Which will reflect on the prices.
Which will reflect on prices. They'll go up. It'll also be harder to get them in. We saw a massive shortage of Raspberry Pis a few years ago. And we're expecting something similar. I don't predict the future, but if I had put some money on it, just like we saw a CPU shortage a little while ago as well, prices went up massively. So that kind of thing doesn't happen with cloud-based computers. We're using servers that are already in place, already providing machines to hundreds of customers. And you don't have to worry about getting new machines in. You don't have to worry about replacing them every 3 to 4 years because that's what the recommended standard is. You don't have to worry about anything like that. You don't have to worry about keeping up with the times. Windows 10 came out. We were told it was going to be one of the last OS updates ever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we got Windows 11. And then that's going to be the last OS update ever. We're ever going to have new operating systems, new management systems,
yeah.
And you don't have to worry about keeping up to date with them because a cloud-based system will do that for you.
Okay. And just as a final thought, in terms of companies considering cloud PCs, the IT departments and the CTOs that need to make those decisions, and eventually the users that can work remotely or from the office and in a more sustainable and secure environments, etc., etc. How do the ITL levels, like officially, how do you prove the security of these kinds of systems so that people feel confident about putting them into their offices?
So, can only speak about LoLa particularly here. All LoLa machines are based on Azure cloud-based systems, which obviously meets industry standards. The ITIL Foundation is about providing a service to IT from step one all the way through, all of the services that are required in the middle of those. That in particular is met by LoLa itself, because you don't need to start providing the extra support, the extra services. It's all done by external clients. So, as an IT department who's ITIL, qualified, ITIL Foundation, ITIL, whatever you want to call it, if you're using an ITIL standard, LoLa already meets those standards for you. So you don't need to worry about implementing those into your department. You only have the little add-ons at the end of it.
Okay. And some closing questions about you personally and your perspective on the LoLa system and cloud computing. So, what do you see in the next few years being the impact of LoLa and cloud-based systems to the IT landscape, especially with requirements in processing going up, with AI now being in the marketplace as well? How would that evolve over the next few years, do you think, with your experience?
I can only see a growth. I can't see physical machines being the way forward in companies. The biggest thing that I always talk about, being a manager of department and you know, having staff and everything else, is you want to know the cost of a member of staff. And you can't adequately assess that cost of a member of staff when they're using hardware, because you don't know how often that hardware is going to break, how often they need replacements, upgrading, everything else. With LoLa, you can actually, from the moment that a member of starts the company, you know exactly how much they're going to cost, because you know to rent a PC for this person to do their job, it's going to cost X amount of money per month. Plus all of the HR stuff they've got to do, plus the training. You know exactly how much that person's going to cost. From day one, you can assess if you can afford that member of staff. You don't need to worry about all the additional costs of IT on top, which often are overlooked by managers, HR departments, and everything else when bringing a person into a company. Most of the time they'll look and they'll go, yeah, they need a £400 laptop. We'll just put £400 there. Then look for a laptop and actually they have a £500 one. And then that breaks 2 months down the line. And all of a sudden the cost is increasing constantly. They need extra software. Exactly. Yeah. They need extra software that they didn't have before. They need extra bits. Well, more often than not, that kind of stuff just comes with the cloud-based software.
Okay. Now, if you were to give one final piece of advice to any businesses or government bodies or teams that are considering jumping onto a cloud system like LoLa, what would it be? What would your advice be to them?
As with any project, do it with your team, not for your team. Work with your team, get them involved in the process, let them choose their own kind of system they want to go on to upgrade to and to move along with, because in any IT infrastructure, any kind of management system, people don't like change. So if you work with the team rather than for the team, you can have a much smoother ride.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. I'll shake your hand as well.
Thanks.
And have a good day.
And you, thanks.